bubble here where you can ask your questions, and we have left plenty of time after the presentation to answer any questions that you have, and certainly able to do any follow-up after today's webinar. And as I just mentioned to you, for those coming on, we're just giving 2 more minutes for everybody to come on the line, and then we're going to start our presentation. Going to start in just one moment. Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Joe Jones. I'm the owner of Big Systems. Just a couple house cleaning or housekeeping items. We are recording today's presentation for everybody's future reference. We also have a chat bubble on your screen that will allow you to ask questions at any time. To keep the presentation flowing, we're going to hold those questions, and we've got a panel of experts that will be available to answer those at the end of the presentation, which will be a little bit, roughly 1 hour from just a few minutes from now. Just a couple comments about what we're going to discuss today. We became HP Latex dealers at the inception of the first generation of this technology back in 2010. What you're going to see today is the 4th generation of latex technology. It started obviously from no printers to now the single largest printer franchise in the wide format industry by unit volume and market share. All along that way, HP has made continuous upgrades to the latex printer and asked customers like you, geez, it would really be great if you could add this to the printer or add that to the printer, or gee, I really wish the printer could do this. You're going to see a host of improvements, including white ink, but just a whole bunch of enhancements to the printer that I think make it just very dynamic and bring us into the next generation. So I'm about to turn it over to Timothy Mitchell, also joining us on the call. Tim is our latex guru from HP. We also have Steve Kotars, who is our partner business manager from HP. And then joining us from Big Systems are the people that many of you work with, John Peterman, Jason Eipert, and Matt Geller. To those of you that are active customers with us now, thank you very much for your business. And we look forward to a very interesting next hour on this webinar. So I'll turn it over to Tim Mitchell. Thank you.
Look back, and it's easy to see the moments when history was made. The moments that reset our course and redefined the limits of our potential. But that is the beauty of hindsight. We can see the moment that everything changed. We know when a new world of creativity was born. And we can pinpoint the day we took our last leap forward. We can see our history because it's behind us. But our next giant leap is up ahead. Together, we're going to make history again. Deliver top image quality and win new business. With a best-in-class white printing experience and an endless list of substrates to print on. Beat your deadlines, powered by a smart, efficient engine and high print speeds. Access new jobs thanks to HP Latex's market-leading sustainability. Make your operations safer with water-based original HP inks and reduce your impact on the environment. This is our next giant leap. Are you ready to make history again? The HP Latex 700 and 800 printer series, equipped to win big.
You have to have a big intro, right? Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining me. And enough of that. How's my hair? Usually the way it goes is if it goes up, Steve, is if it's up and to the right, we're going to have a technically perfect presentation. If it's down to the left, then it goes haywire.
It's kind of somewhere in the center. So
Okay, good. That's a good bellwether. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for joining me on this video adventure that we're doing. I'm Timothy Mitchell. I work for HP. I have worked for HP for 10 years. I do nothing but latex technology. I've been doing latex since the very first latex printer was released. So in fact, we all go back a while together here. I've been doing latex exclusively. That's all I do. HP Latex Technology is a water-based ink, but yet it has all the hallmarks of water-based technology, but added to that, it has all the outdoor durability and longevity of non-water-based technology. So it's super easy to use. It's environmentally friendly. It's not bad for you. There's no harmful VOCs, no hazardous warning labels, no skull and crossbones. And it has all of the durability and outdoor reliability for color fastness and scratch and scuff resistance and everything else, combined with outstanding quality and end-to-end really HP know-how. This is our product. It's all our product. We are an ink chemistry company. We are a printhead manufacturing company. We are a color software company. All of that comes together here with this product. I have the honor of introducing these new products. They're absolutely fantastic. This is the large shot. Let me turn off my, you've seen who I am. I can make that go away. I'm doing a one-man band here. They said if you can do everything by yourself, you don't have to wear a mask. So I figured out how to do everything by myself with little push buttons. So I have about 5 cameras here. Hopefully they'll all function properly and they won't fight with one another. And I'll be able to explain all the facets of this technology and then also use these cameras to kind of deep dive into parts of it so you can see everything very clearly. I have 4 printers. I have a 700 series and an 800 series. And I thought, well, what am I going to call them? And I got it. The Beatles. So over here with the image hanging off the front of it is Ringo Starr, the 700 on drums. Printing away over there is Paul McCartney, and that is the 700 white, 700W. Then over here, kind of set aside, George is sort of in the background right now, is the 800. And then John Lennon, 800W, our flagship, all the bells and whistles. White, I guess, gives you a songwriter credit. So primarily those are songwriter. So John Lennon over there, that's the 800W. I have a lot of different medias kind of in the works here, and I'll explain them as we go along. One is running behind me, which is great. And then I'll show you loading and we'll get them all going here in a little bit. For the most part, the similarities far outweigh any of the differences. These really are interchangeable machines. There's about 4 key distinctions between the 700 and 800 series. And based upon your workflow, your volume, and a few other things, it's a pretty easy decision which one makes sense for you. I use them completely interchangeably. They print beautiful, they use the same ink, they have all the same technology, just in a slightly different arrangement. So it's probably easier for me to lead, especially when I have everything in my whole portfolio here, with the differences. That way we can just assume those are out of the way and everything else is the same. The first thing you do notice that is the same though is they're all up against the wall. All of our printers are designed to be pressed up against the wall and they stay there. It saves a lot of space. I don't need to get behind them. I don't need to roll them out. I don't need to roll them out and keep space behind them because I'm loading rolls from the rear. All the latex printers are front loading. They're extremely easy to load and I have access to all the things that I need from the front of the printer. So the idea is you put them up against the wall and you forget it. And that is something that people forget about. Easy access like that saves me a lot of space. So all of this middle space is mine and I don't need to move things around to try to get behind the printers. Biggest difference between them, the most obvious is the 700 series uses a 1 liter. It used to be 775 liters. I have one right here handy. I'll reach over and grab it. This is our traditional latex ink cartridge. Now with the 700 series, we went to 1 liter instead of 775 milliliters. So there's more in it. You also notice that the plastic is gone, PVC. We replaced it with a very environmentally friendly, sustainable, biodegradable corrugated box. In here is the ink. So you get more of it. And then anytime HP has an opportunity to use an environmentally friendly product or more sustainable or more biodegradable utilization of recycled plastic, we do so. We have always been an environmentally conscious company before anybody thought it was cool. It was things we've been doing 15, 20, 30 years ago that now the industry has started to catch up to us because we were the original environmentally sustainable company and we've been focused on this as all the way through. And latex really is a reflection of that commitment. We don't want to use solvent. We want to use water-based inks. Water-based inks jet easier, they're better for the user, they're better for the environment. So the first thing, 1 liter boxes. The 800 series uses a 3 liter box. I have opened one. I can actually seal this up and use it. This is the white ink. And there's actually 2 bags in there, and I'll get to that in a second why that is. That's part of our macro circulation system. A note about white ink right out of the gate. If you understand how white ink works and its chemistry and its crushed titanium base, you understand that white ink is a different type of ink altogether from CMYK. It's just not the same. And in order to use white ink successfully, you have to take into account its different properties. The mistake that companies make is they assume white ink is like other inks and they just get some print heads and build a white ink printer. That is not going to work. You have to take into account the properties of white ink and you have to build a workflow that is completely independent of the other colors. We've done that. We initially did that on the HP flatbed where we introduced white ink technology, and now we have taken the technology and applied it to 64-inch roll-to-roll. This is a 3 liter box. The 3 liter boxes get lower price. When you look at per liter, the cost is lower. That's the biggest thing you'll notice. The second is all of the 3 liter printers have a reservoir tank inside the printer now. The earlier gens of reservoirs were outside. They were those 775 milliliter ones I showed you, the plastic ones. Those are all gone. The printer comes with the reservoir tanks built in. They're all part of it. All you have to do is put the 3 liters in. The 3 liter is also hot swappable. So while you're printing, if you want to change out the ink, you just take it off, put it in, clip it in, it's fine because the reservoir tank always acts as an intermediary. With the 700 series, if you were to run out of ink, You can't change the ink while it's running, but if it does run out of ink, you will be able to put another ink in. The printer will go into a suspension. You have about a half an hour before you would lose the print. Because we use an optimizer technology to hold everything in place, on our printers, if you have to replace the ink on a 700 series, you will not notice where you stopped. It won't be visible to the eye. We have a technology called optimizer that pins everything in place. And so therefore, if you run out of ink in the middle of a print, the printer will start beeping. In my case, it sends me a notice to the Print OS, which is on my phone, and says, you ran out of ink on the 700 midway through a job. I take an ink, I walk over, I put it in, the printer resumes printing, I don't see a thing. But you have to catch it within a certain amount of time. With the 800 series, you can put a fresh ink anytime you want to while it's running. Also, with that long 3-liter arc, it's almost impossible to run out of ink between jobs. And it's one of the sort of conveniences of printing, because I'm doing a lot of production printing right now, especially with white ink. And so I'm going through a lot of it. I just forget about it I forget about ink altogether on the 800 series. With the 700, you run a lot of white all the time. You're getting notices, hey, you're flooding white, you're going through the white, and you have to pay more attention to your ink usage and make sure you have backup ink and that you're running low on ink. You don't really think about it much with the 8. Those are some of the big differences. The other difference is the 800 is a little faster. There's a essentially, and I'll show you all this in more depth, this is a curing module here and here, and the length of the curing module is longer on the 800 series than it is on the 7. And because it's a little bit longer, it gives us a slightly better edge to bring the speed up even further. The 700 is a very fast printer, the 800 is 15% faster. So lower ink cost, larger ink, 15% more speed. There is also a difference in the take-up reel. Now, it's not a difference in the functioning of the take-up. Both the new printers benefit from our new spindleless, dancer bar free, it's got an internal variable motor, and all of our new take-ups are designed to put just enough tension to hold the media, but not enough tension that it affects the accuracy of your panel length. They're a very sophisticated motor. It's all internal. This reflects generations of refining our take-up systems. I think this is the best take-up system we've ever made. It's specifically tailored for panel printing. If you're doing panel jobs like this whole room behind me is all done in Phototex, then I'm going to need a panel printer that prints perfectly accurate color and perfectly accurate length every time. And that's what these take-up reels are designed to do. The operation of the take-up reel is the same. The structure of the take-up reel is a little bit different. When I go and I have a 700 here, which I have a camera on, and then I also have an 800 here, and you'll get to see the difference a little more visibly, and I think that will help explain it, and I'll note it at the time. But there is a slight difference in the way they work, but they don't function any real different. One of them I have to get a little lower to attach it, and the other one is up a little bit, and it kind of rotates backward. You'll see. Another one, the status beacon. So you see I have yellow here and I have green there. The status beacon tells you if the printer is operational. So I know that this one in particular with the green light there, it's letting me know that this thing is not running at the moment, but it's ready to run. If I send a job to it, it'll blink green. This other one here is probably doing some kind of internal maintenance, and therefore it's sitting in a cautionary, but I can change that at any time. The status beacon is not available on the 700 series. It's like an exclusive club. The 700 can never belong to that exclusive club. The status beacon here has box seats. You know, when it goes to the VIP room, they, adjust the velvet rope and you just go right on in. The 700 will never be permitted in the VIP room. It's not a big thing, but it is a little thing. Those are your primary distinctions between the two. With that out of the way, I'm going to move on a little bit and I'm going to talk about what they share in common and especially our development of our new inks. HP Latex ink technology was developed as a water-based answer really at the time to solvent and to a lesser extent UV. There's effectively three outdoor durable technologies on the market: solvent, UV, and HP Latex. Latex is a brand name for synthetic resin copolymer. We couldn't get our salespeople to remember synthetic resin copolymer, so we called it latex. It is water, pigment, humectants, which lubricate the print nozzles, and then synthetic resin copolymer, or what we call latex. When we developed it, now about 12 years ago, nobody had any idea what we were up to. They sort of understood it, but it was definitely the weird kid on the block. But that was Gen 1. We're in we don't call it Gen 4, but it's really kind of Gen 4. It's the fourth major iteration of our ink technology. And our ink technology is what drives our innovation. We have the best ink chemists in the world. Our ink chemists create new technology based on a new ink. They then work with our printhead teams to develop a new printhead that complements this new ink development. So those two are developing at the same time when they release a product. In turn, we work with our software teams and our waveforms and all the other teams that support it, including manufacturing, engineering. Everything here is HP. There's only really one thing on the printer that's not HP, and that's the X-Rite spectrophotometer. But it's our software that takes the data from this spectrophotometer and makes it useful. That's our data. We take the information and make color with it. We make ICC profiles. We ensure that we have the best color on the market. And we do because we have a new product that we introduced with these printers called Ingenium, and I'll talk about that briefly too. The new ink has 3 core characteristics that make it different from the previous generations. The first, the ink is curing at much lower temperatures. If I were to usually run, say, a 560, which is the printer we had, we still have them. No, they're great. There's nothing wrong with them. We have the 560. I would start a job with a new media at, say, 230 degrees Fahrenheit. 12 pass, figure out how much ink I can put down. I'm getting a measure of the media. What is the thermal deformation point? And once I know that, then I determine my pass mode and how much I put on, how much ink I can put down. I call that loosely printer equilibrium. It's temperature, speed, ink load. If those are in balance, everything works perfectly. Now when I start at more like 190 degrees Fahrenheit. So I'm shaving off 40 degrees in many cases from all the medias I run. That lower temperature makes a huge difference in the operation. It means that all the medias that were not temperature sensitive in any way, I can run very fast with a lot of ink at a very high quality. So in some cases, I'm doubling my speed, like on some canvases. And then in other materials where it's very temperature sensitive, I am so into the sweet spot of that media because now I'm not having to lower everything in the temperature and then not being able to cure the ink, so I have to use less of it. Let me give you a great example because I have it right here. This is a product by Ultraflex, and this is a very common, okay, this is a gray back. This is the Ultraflex PET, not PVC, super smooth gray back roll-up banner product. If I were to run this on Gen 3 latex, I could make it work, but here's the qualifications. I have to lower the temperature down to something like 185 degrees. And in doing that, I have to run it probably 16 pass, and I'll be lucky to put 90%, more likely 80% density. On the 800 here, I take this same material and I load it up, and I'm running it at 8 pass, and it absolutely looks spectacular. So I'm probably going 3 times faster with much better ink saturation and not a trace of thermal deformation. This media is going to be a huge hit on these printers, and that's your roll-up banner market. If you can hit this, and it's very easy to do if you don't have a printer that has any heat, but we will always need heat, and the reason we need heat, let me set this down over here, is because we always want everything to be dry off the printer. You know, unlike a lot of solvent technology, there can still be very tacky coming off the printer, and they do what they can with heated platens and everything. We don't want to have tacky anything. The whole idea of latex is when you come off that heater, you are completely dry. All the water is evaporated. We evaporate water, they evaporate solvent, and you can install it, you can laminate it, or you can put it on a take-up reel. My workflow, generally, it doesn't look like it here, but is take-up reel. I send all my jobs. I have currently 6 of these printers. I got rolls on all of them. They all have take-ups, and I go send, 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 send. Or even more likely, I just walk up to the printer panel and reinitiate the job, because now on the printer panel, all my jobs are in memory on a 500 gigabyte solid state hard drive. That's a nice upgrade. And I'll show you how that works when I send a job on this paper. Being able to lower that temperature changes all of my relationships with every type of media on the market. Finicky papers, no trouble. All of this polypropylene, polyethylene, PET, no trouble. Thin banner, 0 issues. The virtue of latex is it always comes off the printer completely dry. It always comes out installable. It always can go to a take-up reel. The drawback is I need temperature to do it. I need heat. You have to evaporate the water. You have to activate the latex component. When we lower the temperature that much, all the sweet spots of all the medias that we print on change completely. And that's a big innovation, in my opinion. That's the core of all your CMYK light cyan, light magenta. There's 6 color printers. All that core printing of 6 color is made incredibly easier and faster, with more productivity and ease of use than any latex printer we've made before, because I'm not fiddling with that speed, temperature, ink load balance. And I think that's one of the things that in the past people understood as a pain point with latex is, I'm running this super smooth banner, I'm choosing banner, so naturally it's thinking of it as a scrim banner, and all the settings are too hot and it's warping. What do I do? Lower the temperature. Now it's not drying. Okay, that equilibrium gets off and people don't know what to do with it. With this lower temperature, it fixes all of that technologically. That's 1. 2, I don't know, it's a little hard to convey the total impression of prints digitally, with a visual here, but the color on that is outstanding. We have as I said earlier, we have the best ink chemist in the world. We also have the most advanced pigments. We are now getting more gamut, richer color, deeper saturation by using less ink. We have less water that needs to deliver the ink, and we have more impact in the pigments themselves, and we have a larger color gamut. Our goal is we want a 6 color printer, which is your traditional production printer, but we want an 8 color gamut out of it. And because we innovate and because we have the best ink pigments, we were able to do that. So now this one has a significantly larger gamut, especially gamut in key areas along the red spectrums. Very, very nice color. I mean, nobody is ever going to complain about color on this printer. We are, in most instances, 3 delta E or less on most Pantone colors that are commonly used. Now, there still may be colors that are still a bit out of our reach, but they're going to be much closer. So a wider color gamut. If I were to print this 100% that I just did on the 800, and if I were to compare that, for example, with a 560, the 100% density is not the same. It's not apples to apples anymore. What I'm printing at 100 on the 800 series looks a little bit more like 110 or 120 on a 500 series. So your color gamut, even in lower percentages, is excellent. And I think you'll notice that difference. The third thing that we did with the ink is we introduced a feature that makes a lot of sense. And let me put it this way. We've always had the best scratch resistance. We have outstanding anti-scratch properties that are built into our Gen 3 inks. When we released the 360, the scratch resistance was the best on the market. So much so that I forego lamination for almost anything that's not a vehicle wrap, long-term outdoor. 50% of my floor graphics have no lamination. I do very little lamination on wall graphics. I don't need it. I have great scratch and scuff resistance. But let's create a scenario. Somebody says, yeah, but I want to print on Avery 2611, which is a classic smooth wall film, And in my case, it's going to be like in a health club or a restaurant where there's going to be a constant attack on that wall covering. I need a laminate. Well, in our traditional laminate, the anti-scratch and the laminate bond fine, but they don't bond like at a 10 out of 10 because the anti-scratch and the laminate are working a little bit at cross purposes. If you're doing a vehicle wrap, especially in, say, New Orleans where it's super humid, or in Canada where it's very cold, you might experience that the lamination is not as strong as we would like. It's more than adequate, but it could be better. We now introduced a modular feature in this ink in which we take the anti-scratch property and we call it overcoat. You can run a job with overcoat on or overcoat off. Example I have here on the 800, and the reason I'm not going to run it right now is I have put an experimental media from a company that wants to do a certain type of printing, and the key to their printing is a ridiculously strong laminate bond, and they're going to test that laminate bond. If I had overcoat anti-scratch built into the ink, I will not pass that test. With these inks, I can turn the overcoat off. I'm going to print directly to it. They're going to laminate it, they're going to measure it, and I'm going to get the best bond possible because I am not putting anything between the ink and their laminate. And it is a roll-on film laminate that applies to liquid or film. So vehicle wrap people, just turn it off. You're going to laminate everything. You don't want to have the anti-scratch. If your workflow requires a laminate and your laminate is liquid or film, turn overcoat off. Now you don't need it. Most of what I run, like the Phototex job behind me here, that is all done with no lamination. I'm not going to use a film laminate, it wouldn't work. Liquid laminate is possible, but not necessary. Print direct, turn the overcoat on, it functions just like a print head. It only lays the anti-scratch on top, so in some respects you're getting a better benefit of the anti-scratch because it's not commingled, it's placed on top where it needs to be. That's where we want it anyway. So those are your three features: much lower temperature on the curing, a significantly larger color gamut, and then an overcoat, which is what we used to call our anti-scratch. That now is on or off depending on what you want to run. It is on by default. You need very little of it. There's not much that you need to run it. Next, when we invent something, we don't just do some new ink chemistry because now we're going to apply it to a new print head. We are a print head manufacturer. We have made these print heads for decades. We are a thermal print head manufacturer. We have all the patents for this print head. We are one of the few companies that is totally vertical. Ink, print head, software, the whole thing is ours. The print heads are a little different. Now, the reason that I'll show you these to the best that I can. They're a little different sizes. This is Gen 3, and I call this the Rush 2112 print head. That's why I led with Rush today. So poor Neil Peart, God rest his soul, he passed last year, and so now I had to retire the 2112 print head. There are 2,112 nozzles on here. New latex print head has 3,000 nozzles, so we had to put Rush away, that's retired, and we introduced a print head that has far more nozzles than we've had in the past. They are still user replaceable. They are still easy to replace. They are still quick to replace. They are still very durable. They are still inexpensive, and you can be back up and running in less than a half an hour if you do have to replace one. I made a mistake recently. It happens. I was running some experimental media. It got loose on me, and print head came up, caught the edge of the material. It had a big burr on it. Printer said, we have a problem. This print head, something's wrong with it. I take it out, I look, and sure enough, the plastic film is torn. It happens, but I don't suffer for it. I take another print head, I put it in, I close the lid, it does the alignments automatically, I'm up and running, I'm out about, what are these, about $180. The print heads are durable, they're all tracked, we have electronic sensors to ensure they're perfectly performing. We even introduced a new nozzle technology. The nozzles that we used in the past are circular nozzles. And that seemed to make sense, right? You have a circle nozzle, you're jetting a little ink drop in a circle. That's what we all think of a nozzle. The trouble with that is it creates artifacts. When the nozzle jets the little droplet, in our case, our system is extremely efficient because it's not a bunch of mechanical piezos. We use pressure, it forces by heating up the ink, and then it forces the droplets, and then they go where we want them to go. Now we have a new nozzle, and it looks like, I call them infinities. It's not our term, it's just sort of my term, because it looks like an infinity symbol. The infinity symbol nozzles now allow us to jet with a exact drop and no following tag along little droplets. It's just the drop. It's not the artifacts. So it will significantly reduce artifacting and aerosoling. That's important because that's a change in the printhead technology. There's still 1200 DPI in all print modes, fast or slow, 1200. But instead of the 12 picoliter drop size that we had in the earlier gen, now we're at a 10 picoliter drop size. We're trying to make the drop smaller, and we're trying to make the way the drop lands more refined. We even developed our own mode, and we use this internally for the printer for little tiny labels, phone skins, just stuff that you wouldn't think to use in a large format printer, but people want to print a lot of them and then use a print and cut system. And we use a partnership with Suma, and Suma also has a partnership where we have a new Suma cutter that's partnering with our print and cut that's coming out very shortly, and we can talk about that a little bit later. But the idea is you print those tiny little logos, those tiny little things. We have an 8-pass uni that's specifically set up to do that, which takes advantage of both our new nozzle infrastructure as well as the smaller drop size. Another feature of the new print head, other than having a lot more nozzles, the new print head lasts longer. We are already seeing on average 6 liters in the field. I expect to see quite a bit better than that, frankly. And we have a new warranty on the CMYK light cyan, light magenta, which is 1.5 liters. Obviously, we are expecting more life out of them. The warranty is straight out 1.5. As I mentioned earlier with white ink is a different animal. So white ink is going to have a 1 liter warranty and 4 liters expected in the field. Now you can do better than that. We'll get to white ink in a second. That's next. And white ink is just its own universe. If you've done a lot of white ink printing, you know that. Another cool feature about these print heads is they use a thing called microcirculation. We have a macro circulation system, and inside the print head, at all times, the ink is circulating. We never let it rest. It doesn't go into any sort of set stasis. It's always moving. We want that because we want the drops in the jet to be perfect whenever we want them. So the new microcirculation also, we feel, is going to give us more nozzles reliably, less nozzles going out, fewer nozzles to map. Now, that doesn't change the nature that we have an optical drop detector. This has been with HP for a long time, and to me, this is one of the most valuable unheralded tools on the printer. An optical drop detector is always checking the print head to ensure that the nozzles are functioning optimally. And since we have so many redundant nozzles on a print head, and now this outlay of print heads, we're almost twice as many nozzles as we had on the previous gen, it has more nozzles to map from. So if a nozzle is missing, the optical drop detector identifies at what nozzle at what location, and then it automatically takes a replacement nozzle, maps it onto that nozzle. So in the background, we're ensuring that you have perfect prints without nozzle band, what people call banding, is usually nozzles missing. All that's handled internally on the printer. It's especially helpful for white ink. So it may sometimes take a little longer for white ink to warm up because the optical drop detector is checking those nozzles to ensure that they're working perfectly, so that when you start printing, you don't have that classic white dropout, white banding in the white, banding in the white. It's always banding in the white. So you have to be able to jet and be able to check it, and we're doing that in the background automatically. White ink, different animal. That's our new print head. Resolution is still 1200 by 1200 in all print modes. We have a new 8-pass uni that's designed for very small text. We have smaller drop size, 10 picoliter versus 12. It has a microcirculation system that's built into it. It lasts longer, has more nozzles, and it still is durable, replaceable, water-based, all the things we associate with thermal print heads. Also, all the architecture and developments we learned in the last generation about energy structure and energy control that are devoted to color consistency, like the tiling mode developments that we went through, all of that has been applied to these print heads. Everything that we know about ensuring that you have consistent color from the print head, because the print head always runs at exactly the same energy and creates exactly the same drop size at exactly the same temperature, has all been applied to these print heads. Everything on these printers is designed for panel printing, roll to roll. You have to have the same color red at the beginning and the end. Also taking advantage of our built-in spectrophotometer and our new color software that's built into the printers. It is excellent at maintaining color consistency. Like in a 12-pass tiling mode that we've developed, we know that we are less than 1 delta E consistently by measuring if you were to print on, for example, a smooth adhesive vinyl. So we're very focused on color consistency with the new print heads. Next, white ink. Now behind me is the white ink printer, and I'm going to take something out of the white ink printer real quick because it helps me illustrate how this works. White ink has traditionally 2 big drawbacks. One is, especially, I don't really consider solvent to be a white ink competitor. Now, some people may, I don't. I've seen what it looks like, I'm not interested. Between its opacity and its speed and all the other things that I don't like about white ink, jetting, I don't really care. It's just not at the same level. UV is. UV has 2 big problems. One, it tends to come out either yellowish at origin, it tends to be inelastic, that is kind of brittle, and it also tends to yellow very easily. The other problem with it is jetting. Getting white ink to jet properly through a piezo print head is always a challenge. So for me, it's, I have a white printer, I haven't run it in a week, I get a white job, my whole day is going to be ruined, because I'm going to spend a lot of time and labor and waste an enormous amount of ink trying to get those print heads running because they haven't done white ink in a week. I've worked for years with UV white, long before even I worked for HP. I know exactly what I'm talking about. White ink is not easy because every part of that workflow, from the print head, the waveforms, the temperature, the algorithms, everything has to be custom. And then you have to agitate the white. It can't sit. Agitation inevitably creates air bubbles, and air bubbles inevitably work their way through my piezo print head so that I'm 3/4 of the way on a 4x8 piece of Lexan and nozzles drop. Now I have a completely useless, very expensive piece of Lexan that took me a half a day to print that I've just thrown into the trash. Okay, this happens. This is the nature of white ink printing. My view of white ink printing with UV is either print every day or sub it out. Send it to somebody else. Because if you do white ink all day, you might be okay. But if you just do it occasionally, you're not going to be okay. It's going to be miserable. Every issue I had with UV was connected with white ink. What we've done is completely different. The first is the quality of our white ink is absolutely outstanding. The opacity, the clarity, the optical brightness. I mean, it is the best white ink on the market in quality, bar none. I don't think there's any doubt in my mind. I'd be happy to compete against that anytime. The second thing we did, which is the most important thing for me, is I am running white ink at the moment. I have white ink print heads in the printer. In this little rotational chamber that we've created, I have what effectively are fake print heads. They look like print heads, they work like print heads. And on Friday, when I stop printing white ink, I'm going to take the real print heads out. I'm going to put these in. The whole process is going to take me less than a minute. I got it down to less than a minute. And then I'm going to go home. And on Monday, I'm going to walk in, I'm going to take the print because I'll have a white job for me. Or maybe on Tuesday, And until I have one, they're going to stay, the print heads are going to stay right here in the rotational chamber, and this is going to rotate continuously. And the fake print heads in the printer are going to act as the end point. And there is a whole circulation system that's connected. You have a bag inside of a bag here for the 800 series. One's the terminus point and one's the ink point, and there's now two. I may as well just open this. There's two nozzles in the front because there's a beginning point and an end point. So instead of one, I have to have everything circulate. It's a white macro circulation system. Within the print head, the ink is constantly moving. And then within our whole white system, everything is moving. It ensures that the white, when I want it, is on-demand white. In almost every case, it's less than 10 minutes. You put the print heads in, you do your white job, you get a perfect print, you take them out, you're done. We even thought through things like, for example, we have a new maintenance cartridge. And the maintenance cartridge is the same longevity, but in the center, there's a separate wipe. Now, we don't have to jet like Solvent does. Solvent has to jet, and they have a big waste container. All we do is wipe. It's passive. I'm not needing to put a bunch of ink through the nozzles. Water-based thermal print heads, different animal. But what I do need to do is with white ink, you cannot have a dry wipe. It has to be wet or, moist, really. So I just need a little bit of water there to keep the white ink from not crusting. We have a little spritz tank of distilled water right here, and that is constantly working with the maintenance cartridge to ensure that the white print heads have what they need, so when we wipe them, I get a perfect print. You have to think through the whole workflow. Our engineers are very clever. They thought through the whole workflow. I've worked with engineers that were not as clever, and you pay for stuff like that. All of a sudden, your white print heads have dropouts all over, they're not working. Oh, and you can't replace those yourself. You got to have someone come in. It's crazy money. You get a dose of white doesn't work well, and you stop doing white. We're gonna fix all that. We're gonna give you white ink in a super easy package of super high quality that's easy to load in, and you can use it when you want it, and you can take it off when you want. The question is, do I want 3 liter or do I want 1 liter? What's your white commitment? Now, the quality of it is absolutely stunning. And I'm going to have to step out of camera here to grab this. There's 2 prints I really want you to see, but I have a whole bunch of them. I can't put my sample cart because one of my cameras always catches it. This is the first thing I've been playing around with a lot is white backlit. And white backlit is printing on, this is Avery SF100. I am printing CMYK, then white, 160% density, and then another layer of CMYK. It gives you the best what are called daylight white backlit prints I've ever seen. Another thing is our whole white workflow is done for you. You don't have to build presets, profiles, color work, nothing. Our engineers took care of every bit of it. They went through and said, do you want a spot? Well, here's an example of a spot. I printed all of the various densities from 100 down to 58. So 160 are the 2 most commonly used if you're going to do overflood or underflood. Depends what your goal is. We use 160 if you're doing that sandwich. And then usually I'll do 100 if I'm doing spot, but it just depends what your goals are and what your light box looks like and where you're installing. Our white is outstanding. I mean, it's really dynamic. It's white, it's not yellow, it lasts a long time, it's very elastic. You can use it in vehicle wraps and things because it has the hallmark latex elasticity versus that crisp, brittle, yellowing UV. You have all the things you're looking for in white. And this is a spot version. So we have a spot preset that allows you to choose spot. If you were going to do overflood or underflood, I'll show you a couple really good examples. This is clear cling. It looks like it's white, like you're printing on white cling. This is white underflood with the image on top. You could do that with clear. You can do that with a lot of products. More commonly, you would do exactly the same thing, except you would mirror her and then print with a white solid background. So that would be white over flood. And 60% density seems to get that done very well. That's probably one of the more common uses of white technology is you'll print the image mirrored, white 60% over flood behind it, and then put that in a window. So outside the window, you see it well, and then inside the window, you look out. If you want to, you could put another image that's reversed on the inside. Here's what you cannot do with white, because I've tried this. It doesn't work. Now, I know that the right way to do this, oh, there's another thing I want to show you here. I got this beautiful horse image. This is a very good example of printing white spot with high resolution print heads. The gradients on that horse are extraordinary. They're super fine. So please be aware, our gradients are great. So if with this horse, the white ink handled it perfectly. You get all the benefits of a 10 picoliter drop with very, very fine resolution, reliable white, high crisp clarity on the white. This is my attempt to see, hey, and you can kind of see how good the white is on it, how solid it is. I said, could I print something where I printed mirror image, enough white, and then front reading image so that I could do the print on the inside of the window and look on the outside of the window. Colloquially in the industry, that's called 5-layer. The answer is no. You don't have enough white opacity. It's not going to happen. You're going to look at it in the window and you're going to see two images reflected on each other, sort of like me Friday night about 1:30-ish. It's not going to work. You're going to have to call an Uber. That's a 5-layer. In 5-layer, you would do CMYK, white, black, CMYK, or white, and then CMYK. We can't do a 5-layer. First of all, it would be crazy slow. It wouldn't really have much of an application. You can do, you know, a right reading and a reverse mirror and just line them up well, and that's very commonly done. But our primary applications are spot, under flood, over flood, and then our daylight white, our backlit is outstanding. A very common thing like you have behind me here, this is chrome. And I'm printing right now, it's on the printer on the other side of the wall. It's a dry tack polar chrome, and I'm doing some R&D with that. And my initial response is pretty positive. I know there's another product called Kernow Jet, and that also has a chrome that the team in Barcelona has tested. Now what you're doing is using metallics and chromes and printing on black, green, you know, but you're putting white there, or you're using a combination of white. You're creating layered effects. You're effectively designing an entirely new product using white ink printing on colors, because now your white can support your image, or you can have it kind of gradient blend off. And so you take a color and it's right on top of the chrome, and then slowly the white gives it an underbase, and now the color changes. And that's what I have going on here with a lot of the stuff behind me. It's a very cool print. We have all of the profiles supporting white. They're built right in. So when you log into Onyx, and Onyx comes with this printer, the first year subscription, it's free. After that, it's subscription. But Onyx has even created quick sets. And then once you load in the presets here, all of that data comes in, all of the modes, all of the underfloods and overfloods. So all you have to do really is pick what you want to do and what your density is. You don't have to get out the Barbie EQ and build all your own transparent, clear film stuff. They look really good. In fact, our presets that we've built that are released with this printer all look really good. Our color work, our generics, outstanding. So you don't have to go, now you can. It has the media locator. We have about 200 medias on it already. That's all there. You can take the defaults and create a clone and then name it what you want and make minor adjustments. I do that all the time. You can use the default itself, or you can use the onboard spectrophotometer and build your own preset. You have a lot of options. But if you want to keep it simple and you just want to use our generics are very, very good. And they're very, very good because, among other things, our color team got together, some of the best color scientists in the world, and said, we want to build a software tool that writes ICC profiles and does it at the absolute top level that we can do it, and we want it to be applicable to all of our products. So they created a thing called Ingenium. They spent the whole summer arguing about grayscale and the tiniest little details. And now we have a beautiful generic presets that come with the printer and that uses the same technology when you build your own. So my need for an external device, color device, goes less and less and less every year because HP is effectively filling that gap internally, and we make it super easy. Nice technology, things that make things easy. White ink, I think I've explained pretty well. There's also, if you go to a YouTube channel, my coworker Lee Manovich is showing you how to do white spot in Illustrator and Photoshop. So you can use very simple flood techniques in Onyx, and you can certainly build your own stuff very easily. Just name it Spot 1, all one word, and Onyx will see that as a layer that it gets used as white. But Lee will walk you through it's one of the best training on how to use Photoshop and how to use Illustrator, and you could spend like a couple hours watching this and playing around with it, and you'll be a master at creating white. And now you can do a lot of the cool artistic stuff by utilizing the white ink. And if you're not, if you're just running banners all day and then the white job comes, fine, because the white can sit there and you're not going to pay for it. And then when you want it, it's on demand. That's the way it's designed. And it doesn't affect your speed on everything else. It's not like you commit to white ink and now your printer is like 40% slower on everything else you print. Nope. Everything in white. So John over here is the same speed as George. They run at the same speeds because one has white, but it's in addition to, and the other one does not. That explains the ink, the new print head, and the white ink. I think those are your key foundational distinctions here. I'm going to move over to the 700 series, over to Ringo here a second, or the Brio Rover. And I'll go over how everything loads. And hopefully I didn't cut my head off. Nope, head's not cut off. I don't use it that much anyway. What I have here, and just so you guys know, I left this here because this is there's all these medias that I ran in the past that were either tough to run or a little disappointing, or I'm hesitant to recommend to people because, you know, they don't have the years of running these printers that I do. This is a product by Nina. It is called the Endura Matte 225. Now, I can run this on the earlier generations of latex, but it doesn't look like this. And it doesn't run at this speed either. I'm running 8-pass, 215 square feet an hour on here, and it looks great. I mean, it looks great. I did this on the 800. The 700 will be a little bit slower, but it's still fast. And I don't have any of the gloss differential or, you know, the strange material problems that I had in the past with some of the matte papers. In fact, all of the papers I'm running on this new generation of latex look really good. So coated, standard offset coated, non-coated, uncoated, matte papers, everything I've thrown at it has printed beautiful on the paper. And this is a heavyweight paper. It's a wet strength paper. And I've been printing it on the 700 and on the 800, and I'm very impressed with what I'm seeing here. Some of the new changes structurally. First that you'll notice is it's gone into hibernation. It's an Energy Star printer. It doesn't take long to come back up again because I have a solid state hard drive built in. Solid state hard drive is very, very responsive. It's a nice touch screen. You don't have to press it 3 times. You don't have to go to some class to learn just the right amount of sensitivity to give it. Now everything is like super touchy and responsive. This came up to temperature very quickly. I have the media in there. I need it in there so that you can see how everything works, and I'll load it in and even put it on the take-up for you. Nice panel, 500 gigabyte solid state. All the jobs that I've sent here before, they're right here in the job queue. So I have sent this job already. I printed it. It tells me the date. It tells me all the details. And if I want to reprint it again, all I have to do is hit reprint and hit 1. I run the same jobs over and over. So do you. Once you have a bunch of them in there, you just walk up to the printer and send it. I hardly even use the rip anymore. I send the original job, and then I just send them over and over again, and they're all there. You can delete them, save them, and they're all even categorized by which medias you run. The new lid. This is the first lifting curable lid the industry has developed. Let me take that piece of tape off. Makes it look tacky. There we go. Put that on the side so you can't see it. This is my loading mechanism. Here's the difference between the 800. 700 has the feed mechanism, the feed roll here, and then the take-up reel is here. And they are permanent. Feed, take-up. It's very standard arrangement. It still uses a spindleless system, so there's no spindles. So you just slide it right in place, and then there's a little locking mechanism right there. And it doesn't use any dancer bars. It has the variable tension internal motor that's built in, and then when you want to go to take up, all you have to do is just give it a little push forward or a little push backward, and it will roll it up. It will sense where the media is once it has tension, and then it lets off just a hair. And then it just keeps sensing it. It's a very intelligent, almost passive take-up system that does not tug or pull on things and allows you to get those perfect panel lengths. That's what we made here, and it's very easy to apply. I mean, once it's running, you just give it a little pull, it'll pull it up, it works perfectly. Now the load in for this, I already have this loaded. This particular paper, you have an auto load and a manual load. Because it has so much weight and memory, I would probably manual load this, and you just simply feed it in. Oh, comes to the edge of the platen here. At the edge of the platen, there's an entirely new rail. That rail is attached to a new cutter. It's a rotary cutter. It's more durable. I'm cutting all kinds of things with it. Canvas, banner, smooth banner, papers. So cut, straight line, cutter is more durable. That's all been upgraded. The platen itself is completely upgraded. That's all new. Has a completely different platen, different operation, different pinch rollers. That's completely redone. We have new edge guards. The edge guards that we put onto this are longer. You don't need them unless you need them. I was borderline about, do I need them on this paper because it has so much weight? I don't need them. I haven't had a need yet. No reason to use them. I've used them on some very heavy wall covering and some window perf that had some raw edges. Otherwise, not necessary. This also has a completely different design for the ink collectors. The ink collectors are completely redone, rebuilt. And there's a little lever right down here. You just lift the lever, and then once you do, you remove these little individual squares, and then you put the ink collectors in. Ink collectors are things like mesh, flag banner, porous fabrics, anything where ink is going to go through, you put the ink collectors in. A note about the ink collectors and a note about accessories. There's a few accessories like the ink collector, like the wiper roller, which wipes media that has a poor PVC and smooths it out for you. The feeding kit that supports the ink collector to load fabrics, that makes it a little bit easier to load. The platen covers, like if you were to print a material that tends to stick to the platens, those are a la carte. The way you get them is if you need them, you order them. They don't come all with a printer. I have not had any of my accessories. I have been running for 3 months and I really haven't needed them. I've even run fabric, but it's airtight or coated, and so there's no trouble. It doesn't go on the platen. If a little ink does go through a material and gets on the platen, it's all water-based. I just take some water and or Windex and wipe it off, and I'm good. I just haven't needed the accessories. And that's kind of how we looked at it. As we said, we're not going to charge a bunch of people for fabric accessories if you never print on fabrics. It seems kind of silly. So if you need them, you order them. They're a separate thing. They don't come with it. This is designed to make it easy to load. It's as simple as that. I'm going to unload this and then load it. It gives me no grief every time, and now that I'm live on camera, it's going to give me grief, but I'm going to do it anyway. Substrate, unload. Rolls back. I'm going to hit load. If this were vinyl or any kind of more manageable, thinner polyester films or anything like that, I would just use the auto load feature. It's very nice. it not only takes the media in, but it also adjusts the skew and makes sure it's straight. This is the first auto load feature on one of our printers that I'm going to advocate for. I've been kind of down on them in the past. As long as the material will go in nice, no trouble. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to back out and say load, and there's the choice, Nina paper, hit continue. And then I'm going to change it from assisted feed to manual feed and hit continue. And now I'm going to lift this lid. We had a robot test this like 10,000 times to make sure that this is perfect. And it is very nice, and it does make getting access to everything here really easy. So the media is still sort of in its position. So all I really have to do at this point is continue to feed it forward. Just kind of give it a little push. And I can see the pinch rollers taking it, and now kind of grab it here. You line it up on the right-hand side, right in front of this cutting rail. Drop it, hit continue. The printer will activate the vacuum. The door. The door takes a little bit getting used to, for me anyway, because the door is actually right at the height. I'm going to file like charges against my printer. It's kind of surprising sometimes, depending if you're tall or shorter, on where the door is going to open. It's all automatic. It will open and close as it needs to based on what it's trying to do. And it's a little impertinent. And you'll forget about it and then stand too close, because my habit is to stand up here and look at everything, and then there's the door. So what it wants to now know is, whoops, hold on, I got to go back. Just a second. I press that door and it thinks I'm in the next step. So now it wants to check the substrate. I'll let it do its thing. So when you manually load, you tell, in this case, I tell it its width. If you auto load, it knows all that. And then with that done, there's the media on, and I can roll it forward. And what you want to do is make sure, now some medias you can print from the pinch rollers, no issue. Some medias you can't. Some of them have trouble when they come into this curing zone, and that environment, the media for whatever reason doesn't. Some will try to, won't slide very well. You could use the platen protectors for that. They vary. I'm one by one making notes on which ones do work well on that and which ones don't. The Avery SF100, no trouble. The general formulation static cling that I'm running, no trouble. Pinch rollers all day long. This paper, maybe, but I haven't tried it yet. I'm disinclined to try it in front of everybody live, but you just sort of figure it out. We're going to address this somewhat. We have some technology, both with the software and the firmware updates, as well as maybe some physical hardware. We're well aware that we would like you all to be able to print from the pinch rollers for all media. That may not always be possible. In the meantime, we recommend rolling it midway to the curing unit or having it come out the door a little bit. Now, if you know that the media is fine, like I know that the general formulations is fine, I don't worry about it. 3M 480 the 480 film that 3M has for vehicle wraps, no problem. 3M IJ180, no problem. Most media so far print at the pinch rollers, because when I hit cut, it rolls back to the pinch roller. I invariably send the next job. If everything works okay, I know it's good. But and there may have been some firmware updates in the interim that have already addressed some of that. I'm going to send it. Nina map. There it is. And reprint. And print. I don't have the beacon to tell me it's running, but this is going to go here now in just a second. The printer is going to warm up. It's probably going to do an optical drop detection because it hasn't printed anything yet today. The print will go off perfectly. It will roll the media forward and back while the printer warms up and checks all of the nozzles. Normally, this window here, this plastic piece here, is designed to encase the printer, but mostly this is your pause button traditionally. You can lift that lid anytime while it's running. That has changed. The reason it's changed is because there's these little fans right here. Those fans are indicative of a print environment where we're introducing a little bit of temperature, 45 to 50 degrees centigrade, very little. A little bit of temperature, I think it's 45 to 60 degrees centigrade. And also we are introducing the right amount of humidity because we want to create a climate-controlled environment that when you print in, gives us the best image consistency because we're controlling the print environment. It also has the added benefit, for example, on paper, that it's taking some of the water out here and it's allowing it to go into the curing zone without buckling or cockling the media. The way we look at it is, if you're in a car, New Orleans is a perfect example. It's the middle of August, you're in New Orleans, it took you 15 minutes to get your car climate controlled. The kid in the backseat rolls down the windows. All right, well, now you don't have a climate controlled car. That's the equivalent of lifting this lid while it's running. You can lift the lid while it's not running. You can hit pause over here and the printer will come out and then you can lift the lid. But we don't want you just lifting the lid anytime because we're trying to create a climate controlled, homogeneous print environment for every media that comes through here. It makes the media more stable to print on, and it also ensures that our color, our temperature environment that we're printing to is the same for every single print we do. And that's the goal of it. So don't lift the lid while it's running. Otherwise, printer does everything. Once I'm ready, I can put this on a take-up reel. I'll probably do the first print. It's going to roll forward and back a bit. I'll probably do the first print and then roll it. Nice thing about latex is it's always dry, so you can print some, roll it back, put it on the take-up reel, send the rest of the jobs. So this is the 700. It does not have the white. The 700 is W is exactly the same, but it has a whole white system built into it. Right? I think that shows the mechanics of what we've changed. New edge guards, new platen, liftable lid, easy access, super easy to load media and to take it off, new take-up system, completely dancer bar, or excuse me, completely spindleless, got rid of all the dancer bars and the tension, new pinch roller system. I think that they're, much more, a little more refined in the way that they spread out, the way they hold media down. New touch panel. Touch panel is very nice, easy, reproduce jobs all the time. Accessories, those are a la carte, but you can get the accessories are available. So when you get to the point where you want to print on fabric and you want to print on porous fabric, okay, then order your ink collectors. Until then, you don't need them. You can get them on demand. I'm going to switch cameras here and show you a couple other features. Just a second. We'll go over to the real close-up here. This is the 800 series, W, a little bit different. Your curing unit's a little bit longer. I'll get this out of hibernation. I'm running a General Formulations, and the General Formulations is a static cling. Now, this was not on the media locator, not yet anyway. They're still working on a lot of these. So what I did is I took generic adhesive vinyl, because cling is similar to vinyl. I cloned it. I renamed it General Formulations White Clear. And then I made maybe a couple adjustments for the weight. This is a heavy liner, so maybe a little more vacuum. See, because when you clone, you can always then just make simple adjustments in mechanics, like a little bit of interpass delay or a little bit more or less vacuum, and then they will be applied. You can't do that to generics. We want those to remain the same all the time. Or if, let's say, I had versions where I had vinyls and some were overcoat and some were not overcoat, I would clone it and say that's my no lamination or lamination version. That way you always know overcoat is on or overcoat is off. Simple things that you can build into the workflow. Extremely easy to run. No meaningful difference. And as soon as this warms up, I'm going to show you, as soon as this comes on, I'm going to show you. What do you mean you're entering sleep mode? All right, that's enough of that. Okay. The 800 series has a slightly different configuration with the take-up. The take-up system is here. This is your feed, and I've loaded this onto the feed roll. Get back up again. Media is loaded on, and then once you have it on the feed, you lift this lever and then just tilt it back. So you don't have it going to the, now your take-up is right here. And I don't have a take-up. It's very easy to put on. There's your roll. Slide that off. The 800 series also locks automatically when you tap it in. The 700, this is key. You have to remember to push that lever up manually. You don't tap it in like the 600, 700, and then now the 800. You got to make sure you push it in and then just lift the little lever. It's a little different. You will forget that if you're accustomed to like the 500 series, and then what will happen is they will slide out. So make sure you secure that. I've done that several times now and make a little video about that. With the 8, you just slide it in, tap it, it locks automatically. Everything now can go straight to the take-up. Your distance is shorter. I don't have to kind of reach down there to get at it. And shut the lid, and I'm ready to go. Okay, it's resuming. They're all Energy Stars, so they're set to go to sleep after 60 minutes. The good news is they come up really quick. The solid-state hard drive is quite responsive. You can see here I've got all my boxes of ink on the bottom. They just simply last a lot longer. It's got the status beacon. The material is running from the pinch rollers. I would probably say if I had run jobs over today, I would send it, but since it sat overnight in the pinch rollers with our curve for a front loader, it may have put like a little curl in the media. We have a spec about that. So I might roll this one out because last night I didn't unload it, and so it didn't put the little curve on it. Just a thought, things you want to consider when you're going to run a job from the pinches. But this has all run flawlessly. This is set up to run front or overcoat, printing on a clear static cling, absolutely color, everything beautiful. I love what I'm getting out of the colors. I don't have to do any work with the Barbieri or the i1. They're all done for me. They look fantastic. I'm not needing to make any adjustments, and that saves me a lot of grief. Just never-ending little busy work that I don't have to do anymore. All of the curing units also, just like traditional, we use circulated air through the system. We are trying to remove the evaporate that comes off. We're taking water out. The water will have some humectant, so it's like a little bit of greasy water. This all gets moved down to the end, and then there is a little container that captures all of that over time. Eventually, you will empty that. I don't do it probably about once every year and a half or so. It's not a regular thing. Printer's ready to go. I am going to roll this one forward just because I'm not sure. And to get the door, it takes a bit. It's constantly full of surprises. So I'll let this come out a bit and get done. Job queue, I have a job right there. Scroll it in. We're going to do the last one. Let's double check that's an overcoat. And we'll just hit reprint and one and print. I don't know why the yellow light is going off. Normally it's a blinking green light. Maybe I have to restart the printer or something. Got confused in there, but normally it's blinking green. That means everything's good. So if you're a production manager, you can look on your shop and see everything you're going to print to. Real quick, I'm going to switch views here, go to my huddle, and I'm going to discuss a few medias because I've got my media cart. I'll roll this out now. Just some things that I printed on. I printed on this blockout banner. I am running most banner. Everything that I run now is 6-pass. And 6-pass is going to be anywhere, and that's most adhesive vinyl too. 6-pass is my golden production speed. I get all the quality I need, and I'm getting between 288 and like 230 square feet an hour, depending if it's a 7 or an 800 series. So I am up well over 200, in many cases closing in on 300 square feet an hour, but I am not losing any quality. I'm not reducing ink. I'm not reducing saturation, and everything comes in completely dry with no heat to deformation. That is true of the most of the banners that I've been running. I mean, they're fast and they look great. Now there is another setting. There is a 4-pass mode. There's a 2-pass mode too, but that's called a marketing speed. Marketing speeds are these fictional speeds that when you go to trade shows and they all say, can print at 1,300 square feet an hour. I'm like, yeah, but nothing's dry. It can't go to a take-up reel. It looks terrible. But yes, you can print in 1,300 square feet an hour. Ours is 4-pass. 4-pass is a mode available in vinyl and banner. In banner, if you want 4-pass to go at like 380 some square feet an hour, it will revert to 4-color. This is a 6-color, so it's probably about, gosh, it's still probably high 3s, mid 3s. All the color is there. All the saturation is there. There's no loss in color or intensity. Everything is dry. It looks really good. From that camera from here is probably about 4 feet. And it's there. The grayscale is there. The images are there. This is a test chart I do all the time. Everything looks perfect. There's only one thing, and you can really only see it when you look closely at the solids. When we go to 4-pass, the techniques that we use for interlacing the passes are a different mask. It's a different block mask because we have to go that fast. When you go 6-pass, it's seamless. When you go 4-pass, you might notice a slightly lighter or a slightly darker line in some parts of a solid color. It is not visible once you step back a hair. So if I put a banner up in normal places I put banner, you'll never see any of this. It's not visible. All the color saturation and pop is there. But if you look at it like a magazine ad, I'll go, huh, what's this? Well, those are the pass lines that you get when you're running 4-pass because of the masking technology that we had to use.
Excuse me, Timothy.
Yep.
We are coming up on the 90-minute window that we reserved with our participants.
Yep.
Thank you very, very much. I wanted to make sure we allowed time for
Q&A.
questions.
Yep. You got it.
There is one question in particular. Could you, just a general question where they're talking, somebody's asked about running sheeted material through this printer.
Running what? You're breaking up on me a little bit.
I'm sorry. Running sheeted material through this printer.
Nope. Not really. You'd have to, it depends how long the sheet is. I was given something that was probably 48 inches long and that didn't really work. It's a roll. You could do a sheet and it'd have to be long enough and you roll it up on a core and then it kind of becomes a roll. So
Correct.
no sheeted material.
Okay, I did respond to the question via the chat space that the rigid material is really reserved for the sister printer to this technology, and that's
Correct.
the HP Latex R1000. We have one of those here. It's a true flatbed printer with roll-to-roll capability. I would just add a couple. Well, there is Steve Kotars of HP also sent reference material out to the group that if you want to learn more about white ink and Onyx workflow, that Lee Manovich has done some YouTube videos on those topics. And so we've given that to our customers. I do want to open it up if there are folks that have any other questions. Okay, just a couple more comments from our end. We are excited to have this latex technology at Big Systems. We have the 800 white printer version of this family of printers here at Big Systems. We have tons and tons and tons of printed output samples here that we would love to show you. And we would also be very happy to print any type of application that any of you have for you. We can talk to you about what that material is. You can either send that to us or we can pull it out of inventory here and we would be happy to make samples of your applications. Timothy, I can't thank you enough If anybody has any additional follow-up, you can certainly send those questions to any of us here at Big Systems. If we can't answer those, we will get those to Timothy at HP. And Tim, I'll let you finish off with one final close. Thank you.
Hey, Joe, time
Yes.
out, Joe. I see another question just popped up. One last
Okay.
question. Ready to buy a 700W today, but after this demo, leaning towards the 800W based on productivity.
I thought you were going to say leaning towards something else. I'm like, no, I failed.
Timothy, your thoughts on, someone was thinking about a 700 today, but now leaning towards the 800W.
It comes down to two things to me. You are getting a little more speed. So how much productivity is of value, obviously you save money on the ink. No question about it. So if you're doing any kind of volume, that ink price is almost going, and there's an ROI for that. If you look at what I printed in a year and say, look, I've already made back the difference in 1 year because just in ink savings, in the cost of ink. Here's your key with a white 3-liter. White ink is more finicky than colors. I run expired color ink all the time. I mean, I'm a horrible scofflaw. HP's like, don't do that. I'm like, it's going on 2 years. It still runs great. So I do that all the time. I am less inclined to do that with white ink. White ink is a different chemistry. It has different properties. So if you buy a 3-liter white, you have to commit to, hey, I'm going to do some white jobs. So you make sure your salespeople are out there beating the bushes like, we're the white printer. All white jobs come to us in the neighborhood. You want to print white, come to us. Sub it to us. We'll handle it. Because you want to make sure that 3-liter white gets used. I have expired ink. I am running expired ink on my 800 because that's all I had available when the printer came to me. And I don't like it. So I'm watching it. Like, okay, what am I going to deal with here? But I'm more paranoid about white ink than I am with colors. Colors, you don't want to run too far past expiration, but we're not going to prevent you. We're going to tell you it's expired, but we're not going to stop you. With white ink, you may encounter more issues within this whole workflow that we built because your ink is expired and then the white is not behaving like we'd hoped. Just be aware of that. But other than that, if you think you can get the white jobs and justify the 3 liters, all the advantages, and I like the take up I like the take up where it drops in and it feeds to the front. I like that path better, and I just find the whole way of attaching it to the take up from the lead roll is just a little easier. So I like running the 800 a little more than the 700 for that.
Very good. Thank you.
And don't forget the beacon.
Yeah. I mean, I can't get into Cubs games. I can't get into, exclusive places. I'm like out there drinking in a bar watching the game. With Steve.
So again, to repeat, we're happy to print anything for anybody. If you'd like to know more, please just let us know. And Timothy and Steve, thank you again.
Thank you.
Good day.
Absolutely. Hold on, I got
Thank
my
you.
big finish.
Thank
Big
you,
finish,
everybody.
just a second.
Yeah.
Oh, it's actually a little finish, really, but there we go.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much.